Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our January 17th board meeting. And we'll begin, first of all, with the roll call. We have Dale Hansen, business manager, Terry Rhodes, board member, Jeff Nielsen, board member, Alan Gruney, board member, is absent. I'm Kathy Christiansen, board member, Roger Pulsifer, board member, Superintendent Steve Norton, Randall Bagley, board member, and Larry Jepson is also absent, board member. We'll begin with the pledge and our mission statement.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our mission is to educate students for success in a changing world.
Thank you. All right, well, we're really happy to have some of our Teachers of the Year here tonight to recognize. We really appreciate the teachers in this district and feel like we have the best teachers anywhere in America. And we are always happy to be able to recognize you and honor you for the hard work that you do. So we're going to go ahead and begin, and we'll start out with, let's see, what's on the agenda there? Bridgeland. No, wait a minute. Ridgeline. Okay. And our Teacher of the Year for Ridgeline is Bonnie Odd, the Media Library Specialist. And this recognition. This recognition will be presented by Principal Hinkie.
So it's good to be here this evening. This is Bonnie Odd. Bonnie Odd is the Media Center Specialist or librarian at Ridgeline High School. And she's being recognized because she's passionate and does a wonderful job. Bonnie's been in education for a long time. She student taught and then taught for a little while at, let me see if I get this right, at, what's the place called right there, where Blake's at? Spring Creek. Spring Creek. Oh, there you go. Okay, I didn't know that part. At Spring Creek, and then she also spent time at Willow Valley and North Cache and in the Logan District and back at Spring Creek, where she finished teaching math there before coming to Ridgeline. She also taught history and business and English. And she loves reading and she loves books, and she gives me a hard time everywhere we're together about me not reading enough books. She circulates at our school like 100 books. How often? 100 books?
100 books a day, right?
A day.
Which is good for a high school.
That's really good for a high school. 100 books a day is a lot of books. And when we have reading contests, she makes sure that Ridgeline not only is competitive, but she doesn't like to lose. Let's put it that way. So she has, if you go into the bathrooms at the high school, there's perusing on the potty. And there's always a book recommendation on what book to read. So you can't even go to the bathroom without thinking of Bonnie. That's not true. It's okay, whatever she says, it's not true. I don't read like she does. She's parts of different book clubs, and she participates in those and things. But I do read. Not as much as Bonnie does. Her name for me is Odd Bonnie, not Bonnie Odd, because she gives me such a hard time. But she is wonderful. I know Blake hated losing her as a math teacher because she was an outstanding math teacher, but she's also an outstanding librarian or media specialist. She helps all the class. I go into classrooms all the time, and she's in there teaching kids about the media and about books and things. So she's well deserving of this. She's outstanding in what she does, and so we recognize Bonnie Odd as our Teacher of the Year. Be nice.
Well, I've prepared some remarks today here. I love teaching. I miss teaching math. I love the kids. I'm fortunate enough right now to teach all those little 7th and 8th graders that I taught at Spring Creek. Now they're at my library, and I love what I do. Thanks.
Do you have family here, Bonnie? Do you have family here?
I don't.
Okay. All right. All righty. We'll go ahead and move to Spring Creek next, and we are recognizing Thane Weston, who is a 7th grade Utah history teacher and 8th grade U.S. Studies teacher, and he will have his presentation by principal. Oh. Okay.
He texted me, says walk in, maybe we skip one and then we'll come back.
Oh, there he is. Okay, perfect.
That was great timing.
That was great timing.
Thank you, and board, appreciate this opportunity to present ours to Mr. Thane Weston. And Thane is a marvelous teacher. He teaches social studies. He's that teacher that we all wanted for our kids and would want to teach us. He instills his kids with a love of learning, a love of critical thinking, of reading, of debate, of discussion, of writing, all of those things that don't include doing the questions at the back of the chapter for social studies. And he does a great job with it, and he's a leader in our own school. He leads there with a lot of the things that we try to do, but also with the district. And I wanted to read something that Thane said about himself when you talk about teaching, and this is the kind of teachers that we all love. I am passionate about helping students interact with history, whether it is reading, writing, discussion, or simulation. I am excited about the students, them to learn new things and coming up with their own interpretations and thoughts about material. I enjoy seeing the students discuss or write about these ideas and discoveries to see what they've gotten from the learning. I hope they are learning not only history, but school and life and translating to future success. Better than that, he said, I love being a teacher and getting to interact and talk history with my students. He's married, he's been at Spring Creek 8 years now. I believe this is his 8th, and been there the entire time to watch him grow and develop and just get better each day. And we're so blessed to have him at our school and to be there with us. Thane Weston.
Well, thank you. Being Teacher of the Year, it's kind of cool. Obviously, it's a nice honor. But the nice thing with my school especially is that I've got a lot of good people that I get to work with that really I think is what makes me the teacher I am. You know, it's not just my effort, it's a group effort. And I've worked with a lot of good teachers over the years that I've learned from. Being able to work with Blake for the past 8 years has been great as he's been able to push me and give us some different readings and stuff that I think's helped out a lot as well. And like I said, it is fun to be able to teach history. It's fun to work with the students. It's a good place to be. So thank you.
And do you have family here? Do you have family here? Oh, let's recognize his wife. Would you stand? We appreciate the families that support our teachers. Okay, next is Cedar Ridge, and we are going to recognize a 3rd grade teacher, Reed Olson, and Principal Bassett will do the presentation.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here presenting Mr. Reed Olson. We love Reed at our school. So do all the parents, so do all the students, and our faculty just adores him. I don't know if many of you know, but he runs a really awesome Harry Potter camp during the summer as well. And he had both of my daughters for 6 weeks during the summer for half a day Oh, how blissful it was. So thank you for that. It was so nice. I wanted to read a couple things that some of our parents wrote about him. One said, "Hands down, the best teacher my daughter has ever had. He made it so my daughter enjoyed coming to school every day. Not only is he thoughtful and caring, but teaches the children in a way that they understand. He is so supportive of both his students and parents. We just love him." And that's indicative of what I hear from people day in and day out. So we're just so grateful to have you, Reed. So presenting Mr. Reed Olson for Cedar Ridge Elementary.
This is great. So they were in my classroom earlier, fixing my mic today, and this really is quite an honor. I mean, when Principal Bassett told me I was Teacher of the Year, the first thing I thought is, well, it's about time. Just kidding. It's a joke. This is a tough crowd. Wow. No, in all seriousness, I thought in my classroom today after school, I kind of went around the school mentally with each teacher, our two custodians, our principal, and I thought of at least one way that every single one of them deserve this more than I do. And it's such an honor and a privilege to work with caring, competent professionals teaching these kiddos and watching them grow up. It's the best part of my life, other than my family, which I wanted to say that my wife is here recording me. Hi, hey. My sons, Jonah, Isaac, Luke, and my daughter somewhere, Avonlea, right back at the back. So thank you.
All right, moving right along, we would like to recognize Stacy Pugh from Greenville Elementary, and she will be recognized by Principal Ashcroft.
Earlier today, when I knew I was going to come, I asked the sharpest person in our building, my secretary, Lynette, if you had the privilege of talking about Stacy tonight, what would you say? And she said, I would say two things. One, she is the most positive person I know. And number two, that she has the most beautiful smile, and when she comes in the morning and greets me every morning, it makes my whole day better. So I will agree with those two things and could probably stop there, but I want to add what I would say for some of the best things about Stacy, and that is that she takes care of her family. And tonight I'm not talking about her family that's sitting back there, I'm talking about her school family. And she has a student that are all her kids, and she takes unbelievably good care of. And she is not only interested in their academics, but Stacy's going back to school right now with specialize in behavior. And it's not because she wants to calm them, it's because she not only wants to help her students academically with all of the other issues they have, because they are her kids. Also, she takes care of our school family, which is the staff, and always makes sure that we celebrate anything that comes along that needs to be celebrated, and she's always part of those celebrations. Just last night, we had a staff member getting married, and we had a little social for that staff member to send her off to a wonderful marriage. I do have one thing I'd like to read, because I did ask her peers, tell me what you would say about Stacy. Stacy is an educator who is an advocate for other educators. Her expertise in teaching has given her the ability to improve curriculum not only in her classroom, but at the district level. She works incredibly hard with her students and takes time to get to know them individually and what they need both academically and emotionally. She goes above and beyond her preparation and instruction on their behalf. She constantly seeks to improve herself so that she can benefit others with her knowledge. Stacy is the most amazing colleague. She is always willing to collaborate with teachers and shares her vast knowledge of both content and pedagogy. She can be found at school working long hours, working long before school starts, and long before after school as
Kim can come up and fix it. I was going to say I'm here for Mr. Olson and Mr. Weston because they both impacted my children. So, hey. No, I think everybody who has an award tonight, we all have the same goal, and it's that we care for these kids more than anything in the world. And that makes us what we are and makes us great and makes this district great because we do care so much. And so I'm grateful to receive this award and be along with all the other great teachers in the room and the great principals because behind every great teacher is a great principal. So, and I do have to say, introduce my family. My husband, Whitney, is here. He'll wave. And my two sons, Braden and Landon Pugh, back there, wave. And I do have to mention my husband, who helps me a lot, too. He has volunteered graciously this year with a group of non-readers to come in and motivate my class, and within 3 weeks, they've gotten 1,500 AR points, whereas before that, they didn't even have 1,000. But they're going to shave his head at the end of the year when we get to 2,500 AR points. So I have to say thank you to him, too, for helping motivate my class. So thank you.
Thank you. From Lincoln Elementary, we have Kelly Babbitt. She's a first grade teacher, and Principal Bust is going to make this presentation.
Well, I am super excited to be here and present Kelly as Teacher of the Year for Lincoln Elementary. She came to us 3 years ago, and she was a late hire in August. She had only taught upper grades, and she graciously, as we begged and pleaded her to come and work for us, decided she would be a first grade teacher, and I will never let her leave first grade. She is absolutely amazing. She loves those kids. She helps out so much at our school. If I need anything with technology, with a template, PowerPoint is her love. Anything it is with our faculty, Kelly is always there. She is the one that everybody goes to. She truly is amazing. I have some comments from some teachers and parents. Kelly is an amazing teacher in her own class by really getting to know her students to be able to meet each individual student's needs. But she also reaches out to the students outside of her classroom as well. She takes on extra responsibilities to provide extra activities for students and takes the time to get to know those students' names as well. She's energetic and willing to put the extra pizzazz in her classroom teaching. Kelly should be honored because she has taught with excellence, even with all of her, with very difficult students. While spending hours making sure she is doing the best for her students, she has also taken time to help and nurture her fellow teachers. Lincoln is a better place because of her. Kelly has been performing many duties at our school, but she still makes time to answer my questions, send me helpful templates to use in my class, and brought me snacks during parent-teacher conferences. She is awesome. And this comes from a parent. Miss Babbitt is amazing. I just love her, and so does my son. She is a wonderful teacher who cares about her students. She is kind and encouraging as she teaches. She builds them up and believes in them. When there are concerns, she goes about them in a wonderful, positive way with the goal to help the students achieve. She has gone above and beyond to talk to me as a parent about concerns, and it doesn't just stop there. She gives ideas and resources to help my child in his success. What I love most about Miss Babbitt is she is helping my child with more than just school stuff. She expects all of her students to be respectful and polite. She has taught her first graders the name of each lunch lady, and more frequently than not, these little 6-year-olds say thank you and show appreciation to all the lunch staff and adults at the school. Miss Babbitt is helping our little people to grow up to be the best big people they can be. She expects great things, and with love, encouragement, and hard work, for her class thrives because of her. Her influence reaches far beyond the walls of the classroom. We love you, Miss Babbitt, and we truly do. She is an integral part of Lincoln that makes it such an amazing school. So I would love to present Kelly Babbitt as Teacher of the Year for Lincoln.
right. Well, it is definitely an honor, especially as I think of all the people that I work with, as they all are very deserving as well. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to be at Lincoln. It's a great school, and the kids there are fantastic. And I have a very large support system, and I'm very grateful for them. I have family here, I have friends here, I have coworkers here who are also my friends, but I seem to like to start my school years at Lincoln kind of fun, like with broken body parts every year. And all of my people that are here have supported me in some way. They've helped hang my decorations when I couldn't. They've written name tags for me. And so it's not just me that's here. I'm here because of all of you guys. So thank you so much.
And Kelly, can we have your family stand?
Yes. My brother and my sister, but then I also have my sister-in-law, sister, and family. Yeah.
Oh, all of you stand.
Everybody.
All of you, yeah, and all the school people here. We understand that it takes a village to help a teacher, so we appreciate all of you. All right, and next we would like to recognize Tiana. I hope I get your name. Thank you. She is a third grade teacher, and she will be recognized by Principal Burt.
Tiana epitomizes good things come in small packages. There, now it's on. Yes. Yay. Tiana actually absolutely epitomizes good things come in small packages. And don't let her fool you because she's fairly soft-spoken. But when you walk in her classroom, her kids are paying attention and they're learning. And I don't even have a single hesitation. I was so thrilled when she was selected. I thought it couldn't be more deserving, but we do have a ton of amazing teachers that surround her. Here are a few things some of her colleagues have said about her. Tiana is a teacher who goes above and beyond to do what is best for her students. She works hard at making sure she meets the needs of students to help them be successful. She looks for ways and new strategies to be more efficient and a more efficient teacher. She creates materials that are beneficial resources, and then she shares them with others. Tiana is very kind and soft demeanor that her students respond to in a very positive way. And, real quick, Tiana is a quiet leader. She works hard behind the scenes, planning instruction and reflecting on her teaching practices. She willingly shares all of the amazing materials that she prepares for her students, and her students consistently score well on the end of year tests. She prepares students for school and for life. But that's colleagues. Let's hear what kids have to say because they always get to the heart of it, right? So here's what some students had to say. I like Mrs. Michaelis because first I was in her class last year. Then she always made stuff that makes learning fun. And also, she's really nice, and I like how she taught me a ton of stuff to help me in 4th grade, and it has helped me, so I love her. I thought that was good. They prepared her for the next grade. And then this one is awesome as well. She said, this teacher is an extraordinary person. She is great at making everything understandable. She is so kind and nice. If you don't get it, she helps until you do. She truly is an amazing person. And I think that's what you can say about Tiana. She just doesn't give up, and she loves these kids, and she consistently looks for ways to reach them, and reach them she does. So I have just a full heart, and I'm so thrilled to recognize Tiana Michaelis as Lewiston's Teacher of the Year.
I work at the very best place in the whole world. I work with the best people in the world, both the adults in the building, my administration, and the kids that I work with. I love where I work. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And this truly is an honor. Thank you.
That from you, she's good.
And can we have her family stand, please?
Family
and faculty. Sure.
School family and
All right, thank you. Once again, we appreciate all of our teachers, excuse me, here in Cache County District, and think we have the very, very best. We're going to move on to our public input, and you are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but if you have a casserole in the oven and you need to get home, this is a good time to leave.
I don't That's cool. This is a good thing to do. I really like this part of it.
We do it right before Dale has to try and get the clipboard.
Oh, and everybody's in front of it. What's going on in here?
Embarrassing.
It's cold. Except today. The snow's all melting.
Rain in the winter?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think you can become teacher of the year without that.
Is there anything lower?
I know. High winds.
High winds, yeah. That's a good call. Yeah, I am not either.
Just too many bad things happen. High winds. But rain after the grass grows in.
Anything?
You just puddle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to have anybody. Yeah.
Do you guys have?
Okay. All right. We have no one for public input, and so we're going to move down to our consent agenda. And I will take a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I second it.
Any discussion on anything? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
Sorry, I was too fast.
Okay, all the votes are in and unanimous in favor of the motion.
Great. Okay, we will go ahead then and move down to our action agenda, and we are going to consider the resolution of authorizing the issuance of up to $11,500,000 general obligation refunding bonds. And we will have Ryan Bierke present this.
Thank you. It's been a long time since I've been up here, but it's good to be
Will you turn that microphone on, please?
Probably is, you're just gonna have to lean down and talk into it.
Lean down? Okay, there we go. All right. Well, it's good to be back up here. It's been a few years. My name is Ryan Bierke. I'm with the law firm of Chapman & Cutler. We act as your bond counsel in these transactions. And what you have before you tonight is a resolution authorizing the issuance of your general obligation refunding bonds to refund the 2009 bonds that you have outstanding. It authorizes the bonds in up to certain parameters. Those parameters are outlined in Section 2, and we'll just look at those really quickly. The maximum principal amount that can be issued is $11.5 million. The maximum interest rate is 5%. The longest they can be out to mature is 8 years, and the maximum discount is 2%. So this resolution authorizes the issuance of the bonds and delegates the final pricing of the bonds to certain designated officers, which includes the business administrator, the superintendent, and then the board chair. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
right.
The
We'll go ahead
resolution
and-
is a lot longer. I tried to hit on the high points.
We were able to have a presentation by Preston last time, and so I think everybody understands what's going on. So I will take a motion to approve this, and I don't know how much formal language we have to have in this to identify it, but somebody go ahead and give it a shot.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $11,500,000 general obligation refunding bonds.
Okay.
Perfect. Does that work?
Does that
works
work?
great.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
Okay, all the votes are in and unanimously in favor of the motion.
Okay, thank you so much.
Start your engines and head fast, you might get out of the valley. If not, you
Before
might
the
be here
storm.
for a while.
Yeah.
It was nice and clear on the way up, so
Yeah.
hopefully.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and cover our reports agenda now, and we will begin with Tim discussing with us about the parties, picnics, treats, and gifts.
Gary.
Oh, Gary. That's
See
right.
ya.
That's who I meant, was Gary.
All right, so, is that on? A few weeks ago, I had a principal call me, and they had had a parent who had challenged them a little bit. Apparently, the teacher had handed out a little snack in the classroom, and this parent had gone to our board policies. And if we look under the 9,000 section of students, there is a policy actually entitled Parties, Picnics, Treats, and Gifts. I was unaware of this policy until this phone call. It says teachers, parents, or other students are not to treat pupils in the classroom. Any treating should be done through the PTA with approval of the principal, and then only on recognized party days such as Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's, and Easter. Any activity held after school should be chaperoned using parents as well as teachers. No money is to be collected from students for parties, treats, Christmas projects, Valentine's, or gifts for the teacher. I believe, at least at the elementary, we do not have one school that would be abiding by this policy at the moment. What we have, for example, I was at Heritage Elementary just this week on a walkthrough, and there was a preschool class. Teacher had 13, 14 of these little 4-year-olds, and one little guy jumped up and was running around. He ran to the board. He started pulling things off. Teacher asked him to sit down. Of course, that didn't do much. She asked again. She tried to reach him. She couldn't. An aide got up, went over, and helped this little guy. She couldn't even get him to sit down. At this point, the teacher said, "I really like those that are sitting quietly on their pockets." And she pulled out a little jar of Skittles and gave each student one Skittle. As she did that, well, Johnny ran right over and parked it in his seat. Oftentimes in our reading groups, those aides will be working with a group of 4 or 5 students, and as they start their reading groups, those last 20 to 30 minutes, and it's direct instruction, it's intense, it is constant. There's no small talk, chit-chat, time for a break. But oftentimes what they'll do is those kids know that if they will work hard for that next 30 minutes, when they get done, they might get 1 Skittle, 1 M&M, or 1 Tootsie Roll. And that's the amount of the treat. And you'd be surprised what these little guys will work for. But the bottom line is, as we look at that, it really doesn't fit within our current policy. So I only bring this up tonight because I had a principal call me and ask about it. I'm bringing it up to you. I don't know if you want to adjust this policy, if you want to just leave it the way it is, or if you want to quit being the candy police. I don't know what you want to do. I was unaware of it, and so I thought I'd bring it up for discussion for you guys.
What's your opinion, Gary?
You're asking the wrong guy. I'm the candy man. If you come into my office, I've got Swedish fish individually wrapped. I could give you those. I've got Twizzlers licorice. I've got hot tamales.
He was eating one before the meeting.
If you think about it, usually this comes from our parapros, our classified employees. They've not had the same background and level of teaching that our classified or certified staff receives, a 4-year university degree. They struggle a little bit more with managing student behavior. And so you've got somebody you've hired for $8 or $10 an hour to come in, and they end up working for 3 or 4 hours a day, small group after small group after small group, and it's exhausting for them too. If there's one little trick that can help them with that management and get kids to work for them where they don't have some of those other skills, I'm not opposed to that. I'm really not. Now, if we had kids sitting in class all day eating bags of chips and drinking soda, that wouldn't be a good thing. I just haven't seen that.
What's the risk, do you think, for doing something like that? I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, say a treat is handed out, someone's got an allergy to it, or they get sick, or even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there's a lot of exposure there? Or?
There definitely is some exposure. Any student who has a serious allergy comes in before school starts in August. They sit down with the administration, with the teacher, and the nurses, for example, with a peanut allergy. And we actually have a health plan put in place for those students. My own son, he has celiac, so he can't eat wheat. Well, he's not going to go into an anaphylactic or a whatever shock thing, but what he does do, he just knows that that's not, he can't have something with wheat in it. My wife at the beginning of each year would send some little treats to just have the teacher put in the cupboard, and if she was handing out a treat or a PTA or a parent brought in for a birthday, a treat of some sort, she could go to the cupboard and get my son's treat out and give him one at the same time so he wasn't left out. So I think there's ways around some of those allergies or some of those feeling left out situations.
Okay.
So
the only other thing, oh, I'm sorry, Kathy.
Go ahead.
The other thing I would worry about maybe a little bit is from a hygiene standpoint, people haven't washed their hands and stuff's going out. But I'm not the candy police either, and I'm just trying to figure out what the right thing to do is here.
Yeah.
So this was adopted in 1989. That's 30 years ago.
Right.
But it says down at the bottom, it was modified by Dallin Smith 2 years ago.
That just means it was put on board docs then.
Okay. I wondered if that's what it
Yeah.
was. So this really hasn't been adjusted for 30 years.
For a long
But it's
time.
never been followed. It was never followed while I taught.
Right.
You didn't either?
No. But usually, we had wrap treats usually, but.
Right. And even that, oftentimes I would use parents would ask, if they did ask, hey, my son's birthday's on Friday, can I bring a treat in? And I would say, if you could, I know it might cost a little more, but if that was store-bought and purchased, commercially made, that would be better, because we really don't want homemade, treats brought in.
I'm thinking there's a policy for that, because I remember that switching over to parents could not make treats at home and bring them. They had to be commercially made before you could bring them.
At the same time, if I'm in my office and a mom walks in and she comes in with 30 homemade cupcakes that she was up till midnight decorating, and she's got another toddler in tow, I didn't tackle her and say, hey, you can't bring those into the building. I just said, if there's any extra, you know where that last one goes. Because she wanted to feel, it was, I don't know, it's a tough call.
Well,
as
are there
far as
any
policy.
precedents that you're aware of? I'm just thinking of other places. Have you heard of any type of, maybe what other districts are doing, or any precedents?
I haven't really dug into that or delved into that. I'll be honest, I'm glad Alan's not here tonight. He was really pushing that healthy schools thing a few years ago, gold medal, bronze. My school personally never made it to the gold medal school, because at that point you had to commit to not offering treats. You had to hand out carrot sticks and celery instead. And I just don't think we're going to get the same kind of work out of those kids.
So
I'm sure that's true.
I'm kind of seeing a division here between reward for work and holiday things, which that could get a little carried away.
Right.
If, every parent thought they needed to bring a treat for each birthday or every holiday. Do you have any input on that?
I didn't ever see it get out of hand. At least I didn't feel like it.
Okay.
So.
May I ask a question? So there are 3 things I'm thinking currently. So there's this policy on parties, picnics, treats, and gifts. We also, however, voted into policy our wellness policy, which supports this, but that there will be none. And we have several elementaries who have been asked to do pilot programs and are just working like crazy to have no food rewards at all in their schools currently. Also, in board docs, under child nutrition is where you find the no homemade treat things. But we also need to consider our new food pantries and snack shelves in the elementaries, because there's a real gray area there. Are those treats or snacks? Or, I mean, it seems like we should have all of these policies line up somehow, because we've got a bunch spread out right now. And so maybe this needs more work.
Yeah, I would suggest, just make a suggestion that you give us some time and let us see. There are schools who have gone to absolutely no treats. There's no question there. And we do have this food that we are taking into our buildings now and having it readily available. So I think that'd be a good thing for us to spend some time on administratively and see if we can't get out all the policies to line up.
Okay.
I like that idea too, actually.
Okay.
Thanks for making us aware, Gary.
No. I'll take this back to our elementary principals and we'll have some discussion on that and try to line some things up, and I'll bring back some kind of a suggestion from our elementary principals if that's okay with you guys.
Sure,
Is this-
thank you.
Is this something, this policy could be done away with, but in the wellness policy, this could be included in there some way, which does allow for a,
Yeah, maybe that would be a
Whatever.
better place for it. And
you know, you have a lot of kids that, well, not a lot, but some kids that have sugar diabetes too.
Yes,
which is a
we do.
problem,
More and
parents
more.
are concerned about that. And treats in the class.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like we have more obstacles than we used to.
True.
So, okay. That
Thanks,
sounds great.
Gary.
Thank you.
You bet.
All righty, the student-to-teacher ratio, and that is you.
I'm back. Coming around is just a little spreadsheet that we've put together. I think as board members, you probably get hit up sometimes, ask about why are these class sizes so big, or that's an issue. Tim and I have been doing walkthroughs in the elementary, and that does come up with some of these. So this is based on our October 1 count for this year. And if you will look, let's just take kindergarten, for example. That's your first kind of purple columns there. If you will look, Birch Creek, for example, has 4 sections of kindergarten, 2 different teachers, 21.8 kids per class. If you were to go all the way to the bottom, those totals down there show that we have 1,301 kindergartners, and the average class size is 21.4. Now that varies across there anywhere from, I think there's a 17 something up to, I don't know, 24 maybe?
25.
25, okay. If you look across we've got every grade level, and you can go to the bottom and see a total number of students and the average. So for example, first grade, 23.4, 24.3 for second, all the way across. When you get up to 6th grade, that jumps to the average across our 17 schools in 6th grade does jump up to 33.5. If you go back to how we figure FTEs, a funded teacher equivalent, Dale's got quite a formula, and I'm going to just simplify it because I have to simplify it for myself. We start off with a regular FTE, and then we figure in some class size reduction money. Then after that, we do an ESL recapture. When it's all said and done, kindergarten through 3rd grade, the ratio is 23-1. So for every 23 students in that class, we provide 1 teacher, K through 3rd grade. In our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, that ratio changes a little. And for every 28 students, we award them 1 teacher to cover those. So what we have to be careful of, sometimes people think, well, the cap then for our younger kids is 23, and our cap for our older is 28. Well, no, for every 28 kids, you're going to get a teacher. For every 23, you're going to get a teacher. If you look at the far right column, let's just take that first one, for example, Birch Creek. If you average their 585 students divided by the number of teachers in that building, the average in that building is for every 24.4 students, they receive a teacher. So we fell in between that 23 and that 28. But if you look at their 5th grade, they have 33.5 kids in a class, which means they got a couple 33s and then a 34. If you look at their 6th grade, they're 33.3. So they've got 33 or 34 kids in a class. But their average across their entire school is 24.4. Now we'd like to say, well, boy, 33 kids or 34 kids is a lot, and it is. Superintendent and I spent a lot of time in August as students were registering, as we're going over this. We kind of put an arbitrary cap, if you will, amongst ourselves. And we said, we don't want any of our K2 classrooms getting bigger than 29, or 29 is our cap. So if they ever hit 30, even though maybe they hadn't earned an additional teacher there, we put another teacher there anyway. In our upper grades, we put a cap of 35. If they hit 36, we added another teacher there.
Is it a teacher or an aide?
It was a teacher at that point for those. So now if you look down on that far right column, our school with the best overall, if you were to average their entire school, Mountainside has an average of for every 23.7 kids, they have another teacher. They have the smallest ratio of student to teacher. Wellsville has the largest at every one teacher, 26.9. So it doesn't vary a whole lot as you look at it that way. But if you glance down through, you'll see some 33s, 34s, 35s. Superintendent's always been very good also. If there was one outlier, if we looked at our upper grades and there was only one school that had 33 kids and all the others were sitting at 28 or 29, then he would add an additional teacher to that school and we would try to help there. I just looked at those schools that had 32 or more, so 32, 33, 34, or 35 in a classroom. There's 16 different schools or classes that have those in there. So if we were to eliminate all of those that were 32 or higher, it would take 16 additional FTEs. If you look at White Pine, they only have 15.5 FTEs for their whole school. It's like adding another school just to try to get the number down to 32. North Park, I believe, has 14 and a half. So just to get them down to 32 would be equivalent to an additional school on our system. I took a look, I just calculated quick, if we were to, and like I said, sometimes in people's minds, because we use that 23 and that 28 to develop the FTE for each school, and you can see by our average, we fall right within that. But if we were to take every class in our district and put a cap at 23 in those younger grades and a cap at 28 in the upper grades, it would be an additional 72 FTEs, an additional 72 teachers. I ran that at about 60,000 if you take their salary plus benefits, and that's probably a low estimate, 4.3 million to do that. So it's not feasible. That doesn't even include the brick and mortar. The classrooms, some of these schools do not have one available classroom at this point. So even though they've got a number of 34 or 35, let's say they hit 36 on that grade level, we came to them and said, hey, we're going to give you another teacher. They said, well, that's wonderful, but where do I put them? I don't have a classroom. So just to kind of paint the picture of where we're at, I think we do very well. If you look at those averages on the right, nothing is really out of line. We also have to keep in mind our Title I versus non-Title I schools. The feds keep us, it has to be 110%. Our Title I schools can't have, so for example, if you had 30 kids in a non-Title I school, you could not have more than 33 kids in a class in a Title I. So we have to watch the difference between Title I and non-Title I also. Anyway, a lot of information. I just give it to you to help you as you talk with patrons, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, so it kind of looks like the dual language classes have, a lower number of
For the
students.
most part, they do. Now,
So how do we handle that discussion with teachers when
yeah.
that comes up?
Well, so here's what we do with our DLI. Our other schools, we can't control the number of kids in those buildings. If they move in our boundaries, they come to that school. In our DLI, we kind of start in first grade setting those numbers and we shoot for about, if you'll notice in the younger grades, sometimes they're a little bit higher. Because what we don't want is a bunch of classes of 21 and 22, because by the time they hit 5th and 6th grade, we haven't added any. There's not a move-in that comes in speaking Chinese very often, or a move-in that comes in speaking Portuguese. So whatever we set those classes in 1st grade, they will be with us as 6th grade, which hurts us some in our FTE. So we try to put them a little bit larger in the younger grades, 26, 27, maybe even a 28. If you'll look at Providence this year, we had an interesting situation where we had about 90 kids or so on that grade level. What my plan is, we had more. We sent out 3 different times for the outlying community. We wanted to bring kids in from the outside of those boundaries so that we could balance those classes and bring more in. We just didn't have, nobody wanted to come from the outside and come to that school and speak French. But we had multiple within the boundary that wanted to. So what we did is we really loaded up those DLI side, the language side. They're at 29 and 30 kids in a class in that one. And if you look, there's only 15 in the 1st grade on the non-DLI side. Now once they get above 3rd grade though, we will collapse that and they will become one class. So instead of having 4 sections on that, there will only be 3. But for the most part, you're right, we can kind of control that, and they are usually a little bit lower on the DLI schools than the non. So.
Do we have kids that drop out on the way through?
Very few. Very few.
Move away, is that more prevalent? Or?
You do get some of that, yeah, and you'll maybe get, but the attrition from 1st grade through 6th, we're seeing maybe 1 or 2 kids, in a school on a grade level that either moved or dropped out.
Anybody have questions?
I do, sort of related. Are the number of secretaries in each elementary, is that based on number of students?
Okay, yeah, good question.
I assume?
Every elementary school gets a full-time secretary. In addition to that, we have our lunch secretary, and what we've done is we have based that on student numbers. And so we have a prorated, it starts at I think 400 or 450, you're going to get a 3-hour lunch secretary or 2 hours lunch secretary, and then for every 50 or 100 students it goes up half hour or an hour. It caps out because to keep under the 30 hours and benefits offered at that point, we do cap that at about 4.5 hours. So they range from 2 to 4.5 hours per school for a lunch secretary, and it is based on their numbers. In the past, we have not included preschool in those numbers, and we are going to start counting those kids, because that is an additional burden on the secretary and the office help there. So we are including those numbers of preschool students in that as we calculate and prorate that.
I ask because when I go to middle schools, like especially North Cache and South Cache, which are about 1,000 students, maybe a little more, they have, I see 3 secretaries in the main office, and yet in our very highest numbers of elementaries, we still only have 1.5 secretaries in there to handle 750 students and their parents. That concerns me.
The other thing that secondary schools, your middle schools or your high schools have that we don't at an elementary is they bring students in the office to answer phones. We don't do that. We can't do that.
Right.
That is a huge, just answering the phone calls.
Yes.
And that secretary, if she's the only one in there, she has to stop what she's doing and answer that. You got that student help where they come in for a class period and answer phones is a huge
And run
relief.
errands. And run messages.
And run messages,
So
yes.
I understand the 30-hour thing, but is there any way we can put another half-time secretary into those super high student population elementaries?
Something, Superintendent, I'm going to turn that over to you, buddy.
As Alpine loves to say, we can do anything.
But we can't do everything.
But we can't
I
do
know.
everything.
I
So
know.
you just have to budget some money for it. That's
I am concerned because like those very highest schools are 300 students more than the vast majority of our elementaries.
So
That is
I'm just wondering.
And elementary students and their helicopter parents?
A lot of need.
For only 1.5 secretaries? Yeah.
The other thing
That
we-
might be something that the PTA could do, is to get a volunteer for the school.
There's a liability issue there in the main office, because the FERPA rules and all that with personal data.
One thing that
personally
we've done this
identifiable.
year that has made a huge difference in our elementaries, from everyone I've talked to, we've got a health aide
Right.
that we've brought in for 2 hours, and that has been during that lunch period
Mm-hmm.
when the lunch secretary is now down in the cafeteria. So once again, that secretary isn't there by herself when the phone rings or she has to run a message, and they're able to handle some of those things that are maybe take a little more training. Our nurses feel more comfortable with that. Everywhere we've been, they've really, secretaries and principals have said, thank you, that's made a huge difference in our school. So that's one area that has helped, I think. But
I'm sure, because it seems like there are 3 key periods during the day: at the beginning of school, at lunchtime, and at the end of school.
Yeah.
So we're helping in the middle, but anyway, I'm just concerned about those very large elementaries only having one person there. And so there are times when I've been to elementaries and there's no secretary in the office. And it really concerns me when the doors are all open into the school and there's no secretary in the office.
Why don't you give us a chance to put together exactly how much time we have in each school?
okay, I have that, actually. I can send it to you, or I can bring it,
And
in a
then
couple weeks.
We'll look at that, because size does make a difference, there's no question. We'll look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Dale.
Just quickly in your board packet, you got the regular report, and really there's not a lot of change there from the report we reviewed 2 weeks ago. I'm still waiting to receive the information from the state on their mid-year estimate updates, showing how much they calculate we should be receiving locally, so that I can straighten our budget around to align with that and really see what effect that has on our current revenue estimates. But again, with our growth in student enrollment on the October 1 count, it'll be good in our favor, I'm sure. Just one thing I could run past you quickly was, and this maybe ties into the next item on the agenda, was talking about a meeting we had with Representative Brad Last, who serves on the Executive Appropriations Committee. And so he was trying to give us an idea of what we're looking at next year for revenues and priorities that the legislature might have, and also what the Utah School Board Association, or the JLC has come up with for this next year. But the initial reports are showing that there's about $1.3 billion of new money that would be available for next year.
Did you say billion?
Billion, 1.3 billion. I don't have the breakdown of what that is one time and what is ongoing, but anyway, they were saying that a couple of things. One is they have pulled money out that is covering the increased costs of the penitentiary that they're building, and so instead of bonding for additional funds, they're looking at using some of the increased funding for next year for that. And then they also have other ratios where they have a rainy day fund that they want to fully fill, and another, several other items like that. And so from the $1.3 million, when all that's taken out, they're really looking that there's about $625 million.
Billion and million.
Yeah, 625 million new dollars that they'll be dealing with the legislative session. And he tied it back into a comparison of what it was like back when the Great Recession started, saying that if you compare what was leading up to that occurrence with how the economy is here in Utah right now, they're very, very similar. And so you could just see some fear in their eyes of wanting to put that kind of funding into ongoing expenses because they're nervous that something's going to happen, be some type of correction in the market that would then require cutbacks and different things. And so I think they're really focusing more on using this, a lot of the new money for one-time expenditures, such as the penitentiary, just so that if market does correct, then they don't have that tied up into ongoing expenses to match in the next year. So that they did say that their priorities are to fund growth in student enrollment, which they figure to be about 40 million. He wouldn't commit to an increased percentage on the value of the weighted pupil unit, but he did say that for every 1% you raise the value of the WPU, it would cost about 32 million. They're looking at increasing the funding for small rural schools, or they call it NES, necessarily existent small schools. They've been increasing that the last little while, and they want to raise that another $500,000 to $3 million, somewhere in that range. And then also in transportation, we've finally been getting some help, where this last year they increased their funding by $5 million, and we've asked them to do that for 3 years, and so they're looking to do that again as the second year in this session. But then they said there's several unknown items that they really don't know what effect that's going to have on us budget-wise as a state. One of them has to do with the student fees issue. That could go all over the board as to what direction that ends up being, even to the extent where they may even outlaw student fees completely in public schools. And that would be a tremendous, I think we heard, what, about $70+ million of additional funding to be needed just to replace that. There's the safe schools issues that they're dealing with, and that one, I know they've started some traction in moving that forward. And then also, remember the Our Schools Now initiative was changed at the last minute and taken to the election to raise the gas tax, and they would work a way to increase the funding for education for that. Well, that failed, but they did put together a program which they called the Teacher and Student Success Account or Fund, and that's where all this new funding was supposed to go into it. They put some funding in there out of property taxes and state income taxes, but there really isn't a firm definition of how that money will be used and what kind of restrictions and parameters it'll have to fall within on that. And so that's something the legislature is going to have to deal with in this legislative session to see what that'll mean. That was why, we were warned that we didn't know if this would be ongoing money or not. It was tentative, and so they told us to put it into one-time expenditures, and that's where we actually paid out a 1.5% cost of living one-time salary augmentation this past year, just so that it was a one-time expenditure of those funds. But so it'll be an interesting session, and we'll be involved, I'm sure, in many ways as it goes through to try to help steer it.
Thank you. Okay, so that does move right into our reports from the board committee on the different workshops that we each attended, that we got something from that we thought would be interesting or helpful, or we might want to consider using in our district. So Randall, we're going to go ahead and start with you.
Okay, there was a lot of really good workshops here. I was impressed this year. I thought all that I attended was very good. The one I'd like to talk about is one that the West Jordan district presented. Their title was called School Boards Can Be the Lever to Increase Student Achievement. And West Jordan has a lot of problems in their district. And 3 years ago, They had a lot of kids failing. They had a lot of suspensions. There's bullying, absences, a lot of problems with the graduation rate. And this was especially in the middle school. And the principal came up with a few ideas here that she suggested to the board, and the board wanted her to present it. And she came up with all these ideas, and she was really surprised that they were able to scrape up enough money to actually do everything that she wanted. And these were some of the things that she did. And a lot of the problems was because the area was kind of a diverse population. They had a lot of kids that were ESL students. They had a lot of socioeconomic problems where most of the children in the area qualified for a school lunch. But the principal came up with some ideas, and they implemented all of these. And one of them was, she called it co-taught classes, where they would get special ed students, put them in with regular students, and they would have 2 teachers. It'd be one class with 2 teachers, and they saw significant improvement in the special ed students. They did a lot better. She did the same thing with ESL students. They would bring them in with other students, and their English scores improved quite a bit, along with their math scores. They hired 3 additional ESL aides. They did math intervention. They used a program that I know a lot of our schools do, Alex software. They brought in some Chromebooks where all the classes had a Chromebook lab. That helped quite a bit. They brought in a counselor that helped with graduation and counseled the students, and they found that after 3 years they saw big improvements, and it was just amazing to see how the scores improved. The grades went up, the discipline and graduation rates and morale of the school went up. Suspensions went way down, and they just saw a big change in just 3 short years. And one thing I thought was fun, she said that during the SAGE testing that one of her neighbors here had a petting zoo, and they volunteered to bring in animals into the school there. And the students, before they take their test, could go out and pet animals before and after. And she said one of the girls actually said to her, she says, "I just love testing week." So I thought they did some very innovative and fun things, and it was fun to see the turnaround that that school district had seen. So.
Okay, thank you. Roger.
Okay, I agree with Randall. There were some very good ones there. One that I went to that I was quite impressed with by Washington School District, the silent epidemic, the mental health crisis in our schools. One of the first things they told us was they talked about the ACEs program, Adverse Childhood Experiences. And I was looking at their 10 lists there. First, when parents divorced or separated, I got thinking, okay, when I was teaching, there were a whole lot of single-family parents, separated families. But I started looking at this list, and it's kind of home to me because I have a grandson that has a broken home. And I was looking at that, and probably 6 out of the 10 things that were on that list I see in him. A broken home. He sees physical abuse. His mom and his stepfather were just arrested for abuse. Physical neglect sometimes. Emotional neglect. Witnessed domestic violence. Watching parents and step-parents arguing and fighting. But mental illness is going on in our schools, and how can we look at that? Washington, they had a study, and 3 out of 19 of this one classroom came from stable homes. Now, if there's that, I don't think it's quite that bad here, but that's quite a few kids that are from unstable homes. And I don't know if the teachers that we have, I know they try to, but if they, we look at these numbers, if they have 30 kids in a classroom, how are they going to pick out that 1 student or 2 students or 5 that are suffering at home? I know we're getting counselors there, but somehow our teachers, and I think we do know, while I was teaching, I noticed kids that were suffering, but what do we do for them when we see that? And I think somehow we've got to teach our teachers a way to recognize that and help those kids. So I think that's one of the big problems we have in the schools.
That was the one I was telling you about. And they didn't just train the teachers, they trained the nurses, the secretaries, the bus drivers, the cooks. They involved the community. Anyway, if you talk to Tammy, she could probably give you some information on that. It was really eye-opening, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's just like the teacher of the year from Lincoln, you know, she's teaching her kids to respect adults, and if they're talking to the kitchen staff, and, you know, a lot of times that's their only bright point of the day, so.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff.
Yes, excuse me. I went to one put on by Mr. Burbidge. It's called The Trends in Changing World of Education and the Law. And he had several case studies of various issues that education faces at this time. He went over the issues of same-sex gender issues and transgender issues. And the bottom line on this side of it was there are a lot of precedents in the courts right now going on that if we draw a line in the sand without trying to understand what the patrons or whoever their opinion, it's best to meet together and to talk things through rather than head straight to court. That's the bottom line, because he said it ends up costing a lot of money and there's a lot of collateral damage that happens along the way when you do that. The other thing is with the constant fight for money, he talked about an issue in South Dakota where because of the way that the taxes went, the South Dakota legislature enacted a law that required all the merchants to collect a 4.5 sales tax if they had more than $100,000 in yearly sales and more than 200,000 transactions in the state. In other words, they're trying to figure out with the new economy how to adequately provide for education, because the new economy has made it possible for people to do things that conduct business in such a way that they can avoid that. And anyway, there are several cases going along with that affect how the money supply works out. So he says there's a lot that we need to keep our eye on with that. And then the last thing he dealt with were cases where either employees of the school district or others that were involved brought litigation against the school districts because they felt unfair practices. So he said we need to make sure that all our policies are in order and that there's not an opportunity for litigious people to come after the school district. So anyway, make sure our house is in order. That's what he said.
Okay, thank you. All right, Terry.
First of all, I have to say I love the new app. It was so awesome. The next thing they can do really great is make it so that we don't have to take all the papers if we use the app. Anyway, that was my first thing. But I went to a lot of great classes. I went to a lot of similar ones as you. The one that my biggest aha moment, I guess, was in What's New in Assessment and Accountability, and it was taught by Darren Nelson, who is the State Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning, and Patty Norman, who is the Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction. And they were talking about the new format for school report cards under the new legislation from the last year's session, and went into some detail, sort of like Mike did with a presentation here. So I'd already seen him, but as I sat in that session, I realized that last year I sat in the same assessment and accountability session with those same two presenters. And during that session, all they did was ask us, okay, if we're getting rid of letter grades, but we have to have a report card, what do you want on the report card? What do you want to see? How do you want to see it? all of that kind of stuff. And my aha moment was, wow, they did everything we asked them to. They changed it in ways that all of us who were in the 2 sessions they did last year. They took notes, they went back, they used their staff members to change the report card in the ways that we asked them to. And they were taking more input this year. It went a long way for me as far as building trust with the state board and their willingness and desire to support local school boards. And I really appreciated that.
Good, thanks.
And it was great that they showed Mountain Crest on the grade scale.
Oh, well, that's because Darren's
Yeah,
kids
I
go
know,
to
that's
Mountain
kids
Crest.
there, but it was great.
He said a school that my kids go to.
All right, thanks. Well, if any of you from the district have questions about any of these, you can ask the ones who went to it to get more information if you want to look into it. For the President's Minute, I put down a couple of things for you just to look over. And the class that I wanted to talk about was the MBA for 2019. And first of all, does everybody have one of these with the new one? Do you want one?
I don't.
Okay. So we kind of talked about this a little bit while we were down there. And for next year, this board will be working collectively together on one goal, but we have 4 other things that we have to do, 3 other things. We have to take the open meeting law online, and so you can do it as a test, or if you've done all of them, you can just go back and review it and get a better score. Or for me, I've never been able to figure out how to make the score change, so I just go back and do the review on it. So do you want to do that alone? Just everybody on their own?
Sure.
Okay. Second, we need to attend training for the School Community Council oversight. And so the presentation that Mike did for the principals, we've kind of counted that. But I want to tell you about another thing that you can do if you'd like a little more information on this. And you can go online and get the presentation that they presented down there, which is in a lot more detail for us. So I went to the class, and hang on here. It's schoollandstrust.org. And all of her PowerPoint that she presented is on it, and it was good. It was really, really good. So I would suggest that you look at that. It probably would take about 20 minutes to do that. So those are 2 things that we could actually do on our own. And then the third thing is to conduct a superintendent and business administrator evaluation. At our retreat, we talked about that from last year and said we would do the board evaluation this year. So Jeff has consented to look into that and get that figured out for us, how we're going to do that. Everybody good with that?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the MBA Power Up website, you know, the one that has all the quizzes on it. And they have one on school community councils now.
Oh.
With that training.
Okay,
So
it might kind of be the same thing.
our responsibilities to the school community councils and the school land trust.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing is to set a district goal that we're going to accomplish during the next year. And so this is a suggestion that I'm going to make, and then you can kind of mull it over and see if you want to do it or not. But the 2000 section of the policies is our section, okay? And we have talked about, well, maybe we just get rid of that and put our board handbook in. But I assigned Larry, or asked him if he would just kind of look into this a little bit. And he called me because he couldn't be here. And he said, we cannot put our board handbook in that section because it's not for the public. It's just for us. So we do need to go over all of those board policies and see how we need to change them, if we want to keep them, if we'd like to add more. But we could take how it's written in our board handbook and put that in if we want. So that's one suggestion. I'm going to come back to this next meeting and see if you like that idea or if you've come up with anything else that we could all do. Okay? And I had another really great brainstorm while I was in bed the other day, and I didn't write it down. Now I can't remember what it was. So, darn. So that's the only one I can think of. And then, okay, so the next thing, the job assignments here have been updated. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to look over those. Okay, everybody good with that? And then our assignments for the School Land Trust is up. It's the same as last year, except this year Roger's going to be doing Lincoln instead of Larry.
Well, I did it last year too, though.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know why it was that way.
But you're okay with that? Okay, so never mind. Roger's going to do it again. So if you have any concerns or questions about that, let me know. I kind of like to try to get to at least a couple of the school community councils, one at the beginning of the year as they're starting off, one about now, to kind of get them to start giving information to the parents about what the needs are, and then following up with when they start putting their plan together. So if they have any questions, I'm there to say, oh, I'll get that back to you. Okay? All right. Then the very last thing is we will be starting the legislators' report Saturdays, February the 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, March 2nd. I think it's good for us to be there at each one, but not all of us. So I'm happy to go to the first one. One or two of us can go. Anybody want to go?
I'll go to 9th.
Okay. 16th.
I can go to any of the last three, but not the first two.
Okay, Terry, you take the 16th.
Okay.
All right. Roger, you want to go to 23rd?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And Randall, do you want to go to the 2nd, March 2nd?
March 2nd, sure.
Okay, so I'll get this, I'll just email it to you if that's okay. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you taking assignments and doing them, and I think, we're trying to do what we're supposed to be doing, but also be great promoters of the district, and it's not that hard to promote because the district's doing a great job. Okay, we'll turn it over to you,
I
Superintendent.
have just one item, and I didn't prearrange this with Tim, but we're under an OCR audit on our website. So I just wanted to have Tim take 2 or 3 minutes and just tell you what that involves, because they're a nasty bunch of people, and we don't know how we're going to come out, but we do probably know that there are some areas that our websites and doesn't meet. So, Tim?
Yeah, we got a letter from the OCR. It
what
didn't
does
give
OCR
us.
stand for?
Yeah, that's the
Office of Civil Rights.
Oh.
And so, it basically just said that we had a complaint about our website and accessibility for persons with disabilities. And it's, if you don't know much about that, it's, if you look at like curb cutouts or entrances or the height of handrails or the height of drinking fountains, it's similar in the virtual world of, do screen readers allow someone who's blind to be able to read text, to have a screen reader read the text on our website? Or are the graphics properly labeled so that when their screen reader goes through that, it picks up the title for the graphic? Or if they're deaf, do our videos have closed captioning and those types of issues? So anyway, it's quite a large job to make sure your website is compliant in every aspect, especially when we have 25 webmasters out there in addition to Jenda managing our website. About 2 years ago, I tasked Jenda with making this a high priority after we redesigned our website, of making sure she trained webmasters out into the schools that she focused on accessibility. So we went through, spent several weeks going through all of the relevant laws with regard to that, and made sure that we were at least well-trained in what we needed to do on our website. And we've been training our webmasters very diligently on that. Doesn't mean we're perfect on it. You can run little programs on your website to see how compliant you are. We ran one of those on our website a few weeks ago. We were at 85% compliant, which is, I think, quite well without having gone through and audited everything on our website. So anyway, we called the Office of Civil Rights. There was a number on there. We asked for a meeting with them. And the person we spoke with indicated that the complaint wasn't against us specifically. It was a general complaint to the Office of Civil Rights, which had many locations listed as a general complaint of accessibility, and we were on that list. She indicated that she had been to our website, had looked over the website initially with her experience in that area of accessibility, and she said there's a couple of things that I know you need to fix, but overall I thought things looked really good. We have another meeting scheduled with her in I can't remember, it's a matter, I think it's next week sometime, where she's going to go through in more detail. She kind of assured us she didn't think that there would be major ramifications for us as a school district, but we needed to go through and show some effort to comply with some issues. They actually tried to drop the complaint, and the person or persons who filed the complaint came back and kind of held the OCR's feet to the fire and said, you can't drop the complaint, so you have to go through with each of these websites and make sure they're compliant. So anyway, that's where we're at with it. I think we feel pretty good about where we're at. I think we've made a good faith effort to be on top of this in the past, and I think we can demonstrate that. And I told Jenda when she called the first time, said, let's just be totally transparent, totally cooperative. This is something we care about and we want to take care of, and we'll just be optimistic and proactive about listening to what they have to tell us. Maybe we'll learn some things that we can do better on our website. So we're looking actually forward to the process, and I think we'll be okay.
Does it take more money or just more time to fix it?
Well, time is money.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, it may in some tools that we would need to provide for closed captioning or for some of those aspects of the website, but I think most of it will be time. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? Okay, does anyone have anything else?
Just a thank you for going down to the convention. That's a nice place to learn. And just appreciate you taking the time to do it.
We missed you, Kathy.
Well, I was having a bowl of chicken soup. You guys were eating off the buffet, I know. So.
And Dale was winning more prizes.
And Dale was winning more prizes, yeah.
We're not taking him anymore.
Yeah.
We have to take him or we're 0 for 0.
Yeah. We've
So-
had a real dearth of
We
winners.
have.
Oh,
Yeah.
and see, here's the beautiful, what is that called?
A trophy.
Trophy that you get when you reach your 4-year
USBA.
plateau.
MBA. I left mine down there. So I think, are you the only one who had one?
No, I got one.
You got
No,
one.
Alan had one,
Oh, yeah.
Roger had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just brought mine to keep here instead of at home.
So Kathy, last thing, I talked to Kurt about the Safe Schools parent meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that he thinks he's good to go, that we could present something. We were thinking probably a 30-minute presentation with like 15 minutes of questions, and sometime in February. Do you have any preferences? Does anybody?
Could we get Colin Karchner to come and do it for us? He's the guy who presented on Tuesday
Yeah.
at USU.
I think we were looking for trying to individualize it a little more towards our district and what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yep.
Why don't you come up with a few dates, and then
Okay.
next time we'll just
Hammer it
look
out?
at them and, figure
Okay.
out what will work the best.
Okay.
Oh,
will do.
that's great. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate our district folks and all of your hard work to make this such a successful district. Forgot to recognize you from USU. She has a class in journalism, and she's here. What was your goal here, anyway, or assignment?
I have to report on one student or, school board meeting.
Ah, good. good for you. All right.
Taylor is actually my niece's daughter. If you remember, Eric Franson used to play basketball for Utah State. It's her father.
Oh, okay.
And she's redshirted right now with the USU women's team. This
Good.
year she's redshirted, so she can play, 3 more additional years, I think, yeah.
Good, well, you're welcome here anytime.
Nice to have you here.
So I have a question for you. Were you at the game, was it earlier this week, that there were 2,000 elementary students?
Yeah.
Was that crazy?
The meeting is adjourned.